What? Let's see. Mm-mm. Let's see. This is all so new and high tech. Huh. I don't know if it's working. It says it's live. Listen, you're like, what is she doing? So, Facebook has a new layout. So, listen, y'all. I don't know what's happening. Um, I think it's working. Listen, if it's not, then, I don't know. I guess if you can see me, type something in the chat or a comment, and then I'll know what's going on. Oh, hey, Dorothy. Hi, Carrie. Ew, shoulder roll. Okay, that means it's working. Okay, it must be working. So, welcome back to Day with Dorothy. I've got my Selma by John Legend featuring Common playing in the background here as we shoulder roll our way into today's episode. But first, a little chitter chat. Thank you so much, John, for ushering in today's episode on this Wednesday. So we do a little, thanks, John Legend. I don't own the rights to this music. I don't know. Do I have to say that every time? Do I have to? So thanks for joining Carrie and at Opulent Mindshift on IG. Shoulder rolls to both of you. So a little chitter chat for everyone jumping on right now as we get ready to get started. Day to Day with Dorothy, as you may or may not have noticed, took a break yesterday in honor to stand for Blackout Tuesday. When I was going through social media, I feel like maybe not every account, right? But so many accounts were blacked out yesterday. And it was just really important for us and me here at TCS to support, right? And hopefully you were doing the same and just kind of aligning with what's been going on. On Monday, we talked a little bit about recent events as this is Culture Week and kind of tying it into culture and the environment and what's going on and in some instances not going on. Welcome, Business Prep. Ooh, now I need to check out your account and see what's going on. But in honor of Blackout Tuesday, it was literally my quietest day ever on social media. Since let me put a little pin in that, since becoming consistent, right? Because if you followed me in 2016 or 2017, I was not posting. I was like a bad boyfriend. I'd just say, hey, what's up? Hey, good morning, beautiful, every 3 weeks and wonder, why you're mad. So in honor of Blackout Tuesday, that's why I was super silent. But there are ways that you can support if you've been kind of wondering. And then also, right, if you've been following, all these accounts have all of these ways that you can support. But if you're not sure, one thing you can do is support a Black owned business, shoulder roll. I'm a Black owned business. Opulent Mindshift is a Black owned business. And a lot of the accounts that follow the communication strategists are Black owned businesses. So definitely check that out. You can donate to grassroots organizations to help Black people who look like me, right? And then, of course, if there are people who look like you, that's how we can start to, make a difference and really shape what happens next. And then being willing to learn, being willing to understand and listen if you don't look like me, right? If you don't look like me, being willing to understand, open up and like free your mind a little bit, right? And I know some people are tired of hearing about racism and tired of talking about this, but ultimately, imagine what it's like to be living it all the time. It's exhausting, right? So if it's exhausting for us, people who look just like me, welcome to our world, right? If you're tired of talking about it and tired of hearing about it and tired of seeing it everywhere, we're tired of dealing with it. So let's all collectively come together and do something about it. So TCS stands in solidarity with those who are fighting back against police brutality within the Black community. And as leaders, right, it's so important for each of us in our leadership to understand that what's currently happening, honestly, has been happening for years, years, years. It's just now it's so much more accessible. We can literally watch people recording it, and then it can be shared with the world through social media. And, you know, it just wasn't like that before, right? And so now all of these things have been going on since forever, but now there are platforms with which we can actually see, in some instances, in live time, what's going on. So, as leaders, we cannot pretend like this is new. We cannot do that. It is pertinent, it is necessary for those of you who are leaders and you have people reporting to you. You have direct reports, right? For all of my people leaders, it's important for you to find a way to create a safe space for your employees of color to be able to discuss their feelings and their emotions. And so they can have a platform, right, to put their worries and concerns on the table. And as the leader, right, as the people leader, you want to be willing to support this and be willing to create that sense of community within your organization. And I get it. When you don't look like the individuals that you are then trying to serve, especially in a time such as this where it is sensitive and many people may not know what to do or say, as a leader, you don't get to be paralyzed. Now is not the time to just, be shaking in your boots. Now is the time to act because people are looking to you to see what you're going to do. And just know that your Black employees aren't okay. They're not. Even if they're smiling, even if, they're not okay. They're very drained. They're scared. They're exhausted. And they really are looking to see what leadership is going to do because that then informs what type of organization they work for and what type of culture they are being put in a position to navigate, and trying to navigate that gracefully underneath the pressure of everything that's going on is almost impossible, right? And so what you don't want is a bunch of employees taking note and then looking for an environment, a culture, and an organization that would at least demonstrate that they're seen and heard. So that is not the normal chitter chat, right? Normally it's like, what's up with these magnetic lashes? What is this hair doing? Do you enjoy this giant rose? That's normally the chitter chat, but this stuff is really important. And I know that a lot of people are saying like, oh, people are going to deal with it the way that they see fit. Listen, if you are a people leader, you know, no, just know this is a real time thing, and you don't get to just sit back and wait days and days and days while you gather your thoughts, weeks and weeks and weeks while you gather your thoughts. No. You will leverage your employee resource groups or your BRGs or your professional networks within your organization, and you will rally. Yes, you have to. And if you're like, oh God, we don't have ERGs or we don't have a Black one, if you've got Black employees, you've got to rally, right? You have to. We cannot sit here and act like this stuff is not going on. No, we cannot. It is too much at a fever pitch. And so we've got to do something. All right. Hi, Farah. Oh, shoulder roll. That's my fellow Belizean gal. Yes, for all the Caribbeans. And hello, Kermith. Preach. Welcome to my exhausted world. Thanks for taking on this conversation. It's necessary. We need evolved leaders. Yes, we do. We absolutely need evolved leaders. That is going to be a game changer as we continue to navigate this huge part of America, which is corporate America. Hello, Miss Dorothy. You were missed yesterday, but understandable. Oh, hi, TCS Mommy and Daddy. Welcome, welcome. All right, so as we get ready to jump in, let me type in today's title. I always try to think of cute titles, And I had all of these title options swirling around in my head for today, and I couldn't really pick one. And I just was like, is this going to be confusing? Is this going to resonate? Are people going to get this? How are we going to make this sticky? And so I just came up with a tipping point. And y'all, I don't know, as I get into this content, you might be like, oh, yeah, that's a good title. Or you might be like, call it something different next time. We got a great question. How do you recommend starting the conversation? Now, that is fantastic. That's a great question. So here's the deal. For all of my people leaders, right, your managers, supervisors, team leads, and you've got direct reports, what you can do is if you've got a diversity and inclusion department or diversity, equity, inclusion department, depending on what kind of organization you work in, leveraging them. Or if you don't have one, or which I can't imagine actually. Let me take that back. If they are not wanting to be supportive of having this conversation, having a team meeting where you give your employees an opportunity to put their worries and concerns on the table, right? And perhaps depending on if you are not a person of color and you're inviting your employees that are people of color to share, you can make it optional, but at least putting it on the table, but then kicking off with like a preliminary email where you want to be able to lay down your thoughts, your perspectives, your ideas, and that you want them to be able to have a platform because you understand in so many instances, there is no platform, right? And I'm putting myself in the position since I had mostly white managers throughout my corporate career. Honestly, it would have meant a lot, right? Because in so many instances in different organizations that I worked at, these atrocities and monstrosities were going on and nothing was said, not by anybody. And I understand that maybe the entire corporation sometimes doesn't say anything and is silent, but that doesn't mean that every single manager has to be silent. No, right? Because within the larger culture of each of our corporations, there are microcultures, there are subcultures. And in the subculture of your department, where you've got 2, 4, 5, 15 people reporting to you, you can then create this new environment where your culture is truly a subculture and it functions a little bit differently. And again, if you want some help with some talking points, or you want to look into bringing in a class designed with reevaluative counseling techniques built into it, where employees truly can put worries and concerns on the table, just email me, DM me. I'm happy to help, and happy to help you navigate that and figure out like, oh my goodness, how do we craft this? How do we put this together? Because these conversations need to be had. And a leader saying, I just don't know, so I'm not going to say anything, will not do, right? Because your employees are taking that home, and what they're doing when they get home at night, Monday, yesterday, today, and any other time this happens, is they're having conversations in group chats, not just about you as a leader, but about the organization as a whole, right? And around the dinner table with their families as they're trying to figure out how to explain this stuff to their kids. Ooh, thanks for tuning in, Shayla Venato. Yes, it certainly won't. You look gorgeous. Shine, Black Queen. Oh, yes, covered. By the way, here's what I'll also say, right? Because at the end of the day, while as the people leader, right, you're saying to yourself, man, I need to say something. I'm a little nervous. I'm a little scared, but I have to stand up and be counted, and if I'm white, I have to I have to address, my fragility when it comes to racism, or I have to address that I didn't know, or I didn't think I needed to say anything, or whatever the case may be, but it's going to make a difference. And when there's that chitter chat in those group chats or around that dinner table, while they may say, my organization didn't say anything, but my boss did. I had a chance to express myself, share my worries and concerns. And not only does it give me as a woman of color an opportunity to educate and advocate, but it gives me also an opportunity to connect and be vulnerable. Let's see. All right, so that red is popping. Ooh, yes. Thanks for tuning in, Jana, my Jana. All right, so that is chitter chat mixed in with the leadership, mixed in with today's content around the tipping point. It's Culture Week, and we are going to be talking about vulnerability today, which, again, given the state of affairs, which is how chitter chat started in the first place, and we were ushered in by John Legend himself, with the Selma soundtrack. I wanted to talk about vulnerability today in context of Culture Week because for so many of us, right, in our corporate hustles, this is not present. This is why work can be such a hot mess because vulnerability, not only is it sometimes not permitted, it's not welcomed, it's not fostered, but what we can't have if we don't have vulnerability is a high performing culture. We cannot, right? We can get a high achieving culture, a culture that gets stuff done, but we can't have a high performing culture. We cannot have a high purpose culture. We cannot have a team that is out here absolutely killing it without vulnerability. Okay? Vulnerability is about, and y'all know I have my notes here. Vulnerability is about saying that you have weaknesses. You don't know everything. You need help. That's vulnerability. But I want to hear from y'all, right? I've got a couple people on Facebook and a couple people on the gram. Raise your hand if you've ever had a boss who admitted openly, I don't know everything. I need help. I just want to see. I just want to see, right? Because what happens so often is that we have managers and bosses who will never utter those words. You know what their favorite words are? These words are like the kiss of death. I got it. I got it. I got it. You could see your manager like just floundering and flapping in the wind. And you could offer help. You could offer some insight. And they're like, I got it. I got it. It could be something that is in your wheelhouse, a talent, a strength, a skill. Let me help you. I got it. I got it. But you know what that does? When the manager does not demonstrate any vulnerability, it creates so much tension and drama and shim-sham that we can't build the culture that we want to build. Somebody said never, right? They've never had a manager say, I need help. I don't know everything, right? Thanks for joining, Tiffany Yvonne. Thanks for joining, Cherie Amour. My Cherie Amour. Let's see, not that explicitly. So Joanna's saying maybe not that explicitly, but maybe they've alluded to it, right? So if you've got a manager that has at least alluded to, I don't know everything and I need help, we are opening the door for vulnerability, right? So here's why vulnerability is critical in our workplace, right? What vulnerability does is it gets the static out of the way. What do I mean by that? What do I mean like it gets the static out of the way? Here's the deal. When you have a manager whose favorite words are, I got it, which is a translation is, I don't really need your help. You're just here because, you know what I'm saying? It's a lot of work, blah, blah, blah. It's sending all of these sub messages that we process as not only can we not ask for help when we need it, but it's a bad idea to ask for help when we need it because it conveys incompetence. It conveys a lack of confidence. It conveys our inability to demonstrate capacity. There's all of these underlying things when we work in a culture of, I got it. When we work in a culture where our leader cannot say explicitly, I need help, I'm not sure, I don't know, what do you think? Or you know who's really good at this? Susie. You know who's really good at this? Carrie. You know who we need to get in here. The first person I thought of, Jonna, right? Like when we start to open up the doorway to vulnerability, it can absolutely be a game changer in what happens in the workplace. Absolutely. Because without it, when we work somewhere where vulnerability is not okay, guess how often we're going to raise our hand and say that we screwed up? I mean, let me know. When you know that it's not okay, are you going to raise your hand and say that you screwed up? You made a mistake? You forgot to call the client? You forgot to give that refund or whatever the case may be, depending on your field, industry, etc.? No, absolutely not. You are not going to be raising your hand to do all of that, right? And if anything, it's going to be a lot of this. I used to say in corporate all the time, I don't know who did it, but I could probably tell you who it was. I just know it wasn't me. And then we have this whole Murphy's salute, right? It's everybody but me, because we cannot be that vulnerable to be out here admitting that we don't know or we're not sure. So here's what it looks like when you are operating in a culture where vulnerability is okay. It's gonna be clunky, right? Because it's not gonna be perfect. It may look perfect to somebody who's not in that culture. If they're an outsider looking in, they may look in your company, in your subculture that you're creating or that your leader is creating, and saying like, wow, God, they're so like cooperative. They're actually like being real with one another. How are they doing this? So to the outsider looking in, it looks like seamless cooperation, because vulnerability is pinned up underneath, holding everything up, right? It's vulnerability would be like the corset underneath a dress. So when there's vulnerability built into our cultures, what that means is we're going to have hard moments. We're going to have points of tough feedback where we find out why something didn't work, right? I remember, when I was working on this ebook and I was toiling and I'm chatting it over with Shayla, and she's like, no, you have to switch this. You have to fix this. You have to change this up. You need to make this more clear. They need to know what is supposed to happen next in their leadership journey, especially if they've never done this type of work before, right? And it's tough because you feel like you're done, or you feel like you thought everything through, or now you're tired, or now you're questioning all of these things because this is your baby, this is the project you've been working on for however long, and now you've got your brain trust, right, within your organization coming in, and you're having these hard moments, and they're giving you the 2%. The 2% is that feedback that people just will not give you. They're going to dance around it and tell you everything else but that thing, right? And so they're going to give you 98%, but the 99 and the 100 is what you need to transform. That's what you need to take it to the next level. That is vulnerability. To tell you the 2% that everyone knows that no one's going to say is the hardest part. It only works in cultures where vulnerability is said to be an okay thing to have, right? And so the thing that I think most people don't really understand when it comes to vulnerability is that it literally goes both ways. It's kind of like communication. So if I tell you how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and then you cannot make it based on my instructions, then the question is like, well, whose fault is it? Is it your fault because you couldn't understand what I was saying? Or do I need to communicate more effectively? As humans, we're always sending these cues back and forth for how it's okay to act and conduct ourselves within a culture, right? And we can think of culture just like our family. When you go to this person's house, you may do this, this, and that. But when you go to this person's house, you may do that, that, and this. You get your cues from other people. Thanks for tuning in. Transformations. Tumi Transformations. Thanks for joining. So we get our cues. We're talking about the tipping point, right, of vulnerability and introducing that and having that infused and be part of our cultures at work. So when we think of vulnerability and how we're supposed to act and how we're supposed to conduct ourselves, if we think of the culture at work like our family, each family functions in its own way. And when you go to this family, this is totally acceptable. But when you go to this family, it's not. So this idea of vulnerability being a two-way street, it all starts with those preliminary interactions with our leader, our manager, the person who first interviews us when we're thinking about taking this job at this new company, right? So a lot of times these interviews will say something like, well, tell me about yourself. Tell me a little bit about yourself. We usually have like these canned responses. They may tell you something about themselves. They also may have a canned response, especially because they're interviewing a ton of people for that role, right? But here's what's also true. That doesn't create a ton of vulnerability. It may create small opportunities to connect, but here's what needs to happen. Whether it's in the interview process or once we get on board, leaders have to be really deliberate if they want to have these amazing cultures that we read about in some of these different magazines like Inc. and Forbes and things like that. If we want to have these amazing cultures, they don't happen on accident. They don't just happen because in our minds we want to build an amazing culture. It's really deliberate. But in order for me as the employee to become vulnerable with you, you have to pick up on my cues. You have to. Thanks for joining, Luxankara. Yes. We're talking about vulnerability and the role that that plays in culture today. So welcome. So here's the deal. If you ask me a question, Dorothy, this was based on an experiment that happened, I think, in the early 2000s. So there was an experiment where they were trying to test and calibrate vulnerability, specifically among strangers. Because when we start a new job, a lot of times everyone's a stranger to us, unless a friend brought us in, right? And so here's the deal. Vulnerability goes both ways. So if you ask me a question like, hey, Dorothy, tell me about your weekend. Tell me about, a pet that you had. Tell me where you grew up. Tell me where you were born. We may be able to find some connection points, right? But it's not going to create a ton of vulnerability. All of this stuff is pretty standard. But if you ask me something like, Dorothy, if you had a crystal ball and it could tell you anything about you, or you could ask it any questions, or it could reveal to you what your future is going to be, what would you do? What questions would you ask? Now, I may be starting to feel like, okay, that's not typical. Like, I don't usually have this conversation. Dorothy, what's a dream that you've always had? And why haven't you pursued it? What are you waiting for? What's holding you back? Now we're starting to peel back the layers, and this is the leader's cue to be vulnerable right back. Because if I'm being vulnerable, that makes me feel sometimes uncomfortable because in our culture, vulnerability, especially with this skin color, right? Vulnerability is not always viewed as something good. So when I put myself out there, right, and I show my soft pink underbelly because my dream was to do X, and if I could ask the crystal ball about myself, I would want to know X, Y, and Z. Am I a good mother? Is my daughter going to grow up? Is she going to grow up? Am I going to be there to see it? Am I doing anything wrong with how I'm parenting her? Whatever the case may be, right? And now, as the person asking the question, this is where we create the vulnerability loop, right? And that loop is your opportunity to be vulnerable right back. Oh my God, I'm a parent too. And my boys are grown. And I was so afraid that I was breaking them and messing them up and that they would end up in therapy. And there were a couple times when blah, 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 blah. Now what you're creating is this loop of vulnerability to say, you know what? You're not alone in this. And I'm not alone in this. We're actually in this together. And it's okay to not have all the answers. It's okay to need help. And it's okay to ask for help. And so here are 4 words that I think every leader, especially people leaders, should have in their vocabulary. Anyone have any ideas? Anyone have any ideas? 4 little words versus I got it, right? Anyone have any ideas? What it does is it opens the platform for people to be able to contribute to whatever's going on, especially high stress, high pressure situations, i.e. like now. For the leader who feels pressed, stressed, overwhelmed, they're not sure what to say, they're feeling a little paralyzed, this is the perfect time to evoke those 4 words. Anyone have any ideas? I'm not sure how we should deal with this. Should we address it? Should we not? Anyone have any ideas? Versus, I got it. We're just not saying anything, right? So when we create an environment where vulnerability is present, what the research has found is that, and Tiffany said it empowers your team too. Yes! Oh my God! Anyone have any ideas? Versus, I got it, don't even worry about it. Just do what I tell you to do, right? It empowers your team. And that's where we can also build these subcultures that we were talking about a few minutes ago. And that's how we can build really dynamic cultures as well. So what they found in this experiment where they were, testing vulnerability is when one person was vulnerable. So let's say you and I have a conversation and I'm being vulnerable and you're vulnerable right back. You would think that it would only be me and you. Like me and you have this special little thing and this is our thing and no one else is included. What the experiment found is that your propensity to be vulnerable with others increases by about 24%. And so if somebody else comes along, you're willing to be vulnerable with them too. And so when vulnerability is contagious, we then can create an environment where it's okay to not know everything. It's okay to ask for help. It's okay to say, I don't know. I need your help. Anyone have any ideas? I'm not sure. What do you think? And then to be able to get the static out of the way so you don't feel pressed to know all of the things all of the time. That's just not even practical. That's not even human. And what this does though is it drives trust up and then eventually through the roof. A lot of people think trust then vulnerability. That's actually wrong. Vulnerability, then trust. Vulnerability, then trust. Vulnerability precedes trust and it gives us a soft place to land. It's kind of like, in Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz, the yellow brick road is being built like almost as they're walking, right? Think of that like the relationship between vulnerability and trust. As we are creating vulnerable moments, now we have another place to step. So trust can't happen without vulnerability, contrary to what most of us believe. So to close out, we often see vulnerability, especially in corporate America, right, as something that needs to be hidden. And our environments fan the flames on this idea constantly because most people that raise their hand get it slapped down, right? Most people that raise their hand get in trouble, especially if they've made a mistake, especially if they're asking for help. Some cultures create an environment where you're penalized for doing all that. And you are rewarded for not asking for help and doing it on your own. But this causes us to see vulnerability as something that should be hidden. But if we want to create cooperation, if we want to create cultures that are worthy and notable of bringing all the peeps in and bringing all of the boys and girls to the yard, vulnerability is no longer a risk, it's a requirement. And the tipping point is seeing the vulnerability cues and responding. So you see someone being vulnerable, and as the leader, you return with vulnerability. Yes? Yes? It might be a little challenging, but I think we can do this. And Tiffany says, yep, because vulnerability builds trust. So here is the deal. When it comes to vulnerability, it's about saying that you have weaknesses and that you need help, right? It means that we're acknowledging that we're not perfect. It means that we know we don't know everything and we cannot do everything by ourselves. But by doing this, this allows us to get the static out the way, get to work, and get busy, right? We want to get to work. We want to get stuff done. And here's the best part. It's contagious. And there's listen, COVID is contagious and we don't want that, but we want vulnerability. We want everyone to catch that. We want everyone to catch vulnerability within the context of these cultures because it can 10,000% be a game changer. And it's important, right? It's important that we infuse this when we're building these cultures in our organizations. And if you are in the midst of working on your leadership, or you're wondering, man, how can I up my leadership? I've got my birthday bundle out, y'all. Maybe you know, maybe you don't know. But the birthday bundle bundles everything together and you get free shipping. So it is your copy of the plug, the digital copy. You also get the hard copy plus the journal. Hard copy plus the journal. Nice. Did you know that writing stuff down is considered a form of meditation? And let me tell y'all something. From a leadership standpoint, when I think about the importance of being able to meditate in this season with everything going on, I feel like that's a game changer, right? And so when we think about the different attributes and characteristics of a remarkable leader, we want the leader that's going to be thoughtful, the leader that's going to be congruent, the leader that's going to be authentic, and show up in a way that's going to resonate and bring other people along on the journey, right? We're on this journey of going from ordinary to remarkable. That's what TCS is about. Helping ordinary people, ordinary like me and you, helping ordinary people become remarkable leaders. And so with the birthday bundle, you get the hard copy, you get the digital copy, and your choice of the plug shirt. It is either the black one or the gold one. It is a fitted women's t-shirt. So definitely get that. It's free shipping. You don't even got to worry about it. Happy birthday, Dorothy. So you can get the bundle. Now, if you are a Corporate Hustler subscriber, there is a special deal coming your way. Because I share things in the Corporate Hustle Council that I do not share on here, even though I share a ton on here. But yeah, the corporate counselors, the corporate hustlers, aka the council, that's just, that's between us. That's our little secret society, right? So if you are subscribed to that, you will be in for a real treat. So be on the lookout for that this week. But here's the deal. If you've been thinking about getting the plug, maybe you don't want the bundle. I don't know why. But if you don't want the bundle, just go ahead and mosey on over to the link in the bio and click, I want my copy of the plug, right? And you can get the digital copy, and it will go right into your inbox. But here's the deal. When it comes to this ebook, it is a 14-day interactive leadership experience. But here's what I want for you. When you finish the plug, I want you to have an increased understanding of characteristics, right, that are really important to remarkable leadership, but then also how are you going to infuse these characteristics into your frontline leadership? You're the one going to work every single day in, day out, making a difference. How can you infuse these characteristics and attributes into your leadership? I want you to be able to achieve your goals with greater insight into specific traits that you need in order to go from ordinary leadership to remarkable leadership. And I want for you to be equipped with ways to overcome challenges and setbacks by leveraging your new leadership skills. Because it's not if you face challenges and setbacks, it's when. They're coming. We're in corporate. The challenges and setbacks are en route. But being better equipped to navigate, oh my God, y'all. It's time to become the plug, the remarkable leader everyone wants to know. I'm here for this magic. I hope you are too. Click the link in the bio and explore. Even if you're watching the replay, click the link in the bio and explore. Even if you're watching on YouTube, go ahead and mosey on over to the website, DorothyEnriquez.com, and just explore. And if you're not a member of the Corporate Hustlers, if you're not subscribed, you're missing out. All right. I hope that this was helpful as we're thinking about culture, as we are navigating Culture Week. And I hope that This week, your organizations are putting together statements and plans, not just words, right? About what is next as we really continue to be thoughtful about the customers and the employees that we serve. This is such an important time, and it really is going to show you as the corporate hustler, right, what your organization is made of. And so I hope and I trust that these organizations that make up corporate America will take a step back to move step forward and do the right thing, because right is right. All right. If this video had some nuggets in it, I hope that you will share it. Click the little airplane in Instagram or the share button on Facebook. I will make it easy if you are technologically challenged, like I can be sometimes. You've seen me, right? I'd be like, what is this? I will pose for you, and then you can take a screenshot and put it in your main feed or in your stories or share with a friend. And that is how we're going to spread the word on how to help all the corporate hustlers accelerate their ascent. Do not be like me. You do not have to survive corporate. You can thrive, sis. Let me pose for you. Yes. Thank you for tuning in. Thanks for popping by, Outspoken Wifey. Thanks to everyone on Facebook who tuned in. Listen, y'all, this is still going to be our year. Yes, it is. This is still going to be our year. We are still going to get it in, and we are still going to make magic. Thank you for everyone who tuned in. And I am going to have a special announcement because we had a lot of folks tune in today. So there's going to be a special announcement tomorrow on Day to Day with Dorothy. So I'll see y'all tomorrow. Shoulder roll. Yes. Have a great day at work, y'all, given the circumstances. Have the best day possible. All right. Tiffany said, amen. Amen, y'all. Cheers to the best day possible. I will see y'all tomorrow. All right, Facebook. You know you always get the last shoulder roll. Yes. All right, y'all. What is this? What is this piece of hair? Listen, y'all. And I just be like, what is this piece of hair doing? All right, y'all. Until tomorrow. Bye. No, this is new. How do I do it? Oh, there we go.